My name is Yanis Mavris. I'm a journalist with Swiss Info, the international channel of the Swiss Broadcasting Corporation. And we have a colleague with us who is a film critic. And when I asked him, ahead of the podium to give me some inputs as preparation, he was like, this seems to be a blind spot. So let's find out if it really is or not. I would like to introduce our guests. Over there we have John Canciani. I hope I'm pronouncing all the names correctly. I'm sorry if not. He's the artistic director at the Kurzfilmtage Winterthur, which will have next year the 30th edition, if I'm correct, right? Great. He's also co-curating a part of the festival this year. Well, thanks a lot for being here. Next we have Cynthia Gilles. She's a curator and former director of the Doc Lisboa, among others, a documentary film festival in Portugal, Lisbon, and she's curating the Portuguese contributions of this edition of Kino Kosova. Next we have Veton Nurkolari, who is director of programming at the DocuFest in Prizren, Kosovo, and also our last-minute guest who still made it, Belkis Bayrak. She's a filmmaker from Turkey, and tonight we are going to see also her movie, the first full-length movie, Gülizar, right? Okay, well, welcome everybody, and I would like to just start with a very broad question, going after the question: how do you? I mean, if we talk about the audience gap. Just to be on the same page with everybody, let me tell you what the description is. While filmmakers work to fill cultural gaps on screen, what about off-screen? This panel looks at access, how distribution, language, and even location determine who gets to see which stories, and what festivals can do to make cinema more inclusive and democratic. And like this, I would like to start. How do you anticipate this issue in your work, in your professional standpoint, and how do you address it in your work? Cynthia, would you like to start?
Sure. Is this working? Yeah. So, hello everyone. Thank you for inviting me. So yes, we do. I mean, I do address it, and we do collectively programming the festival. I think the audience is a big topic that needs many different, multiple, and complementary strategies to work. Right? I am not in favor of falling into the easy solution of the jargon of giving people what they want first, because we never know what people want, fortunately. And second, because the audience is an abstract concept. We don't know who audience is. We can make statistics, but statistics don't give us the texture and the complexities and nuances of the people who actually come. So I think in festivals we are very lucky because we don't exist the whole year. We can do, we can take the time, an entire year, to think about the activities that will happen in a short moment in time. And even if we have activities along the year, we are not running a school, we are not running a big institution, so we are flexible. And we can invent and use our imagination and use also our knowledge of the field to create strategies that are realistic and that are attached to the people we want to touch, right? And so for us, for me at least, it's really important to have, on the one hand, when we program, to try to imagine the program of a festival as a map. Like if you go in a city, right? If you go in a city and you don't know anything, maybe first you will go to the center because you think, okay, this is what I should do. I just go to the center, it's the easy one. But then you will start taking small adventures. You will maybe go into smaller streets and maybe you will find weird corners that you would never think you would find, and that are actually the most important things. So I think the program of a festival should be like that. We need to know our audiences really well. I really love festivals that are connected to communities, you know. And so we do know our audiences well, in the sense that we know our society and the community we live in. We know its politics, we know its worries, its imaginary, etc. And try to find a program that somehow speaks to that, challenging it, of course, but then also provoke and also create the little alleys that people can find in a program that has links, that has multiple resonances across the sections, and that can help people find out things. And I think that's also the role of programmers and the people who introduce screenings and talk to the audience. I love talk to the people, you know, outside the screenings, to pass that, to communicate the program in an interesting and engaging way. But then there's also the educational activities, which are super important. And for us, I was never a fan of, you know, those sort of easy educational services in festivals where you just put animation for kids and that's it. I really believe kids can watch almost any film, almost. And so for us, it's really important to create an educational program that does not bring films for kids. It's actually built with the films from the program. And what we do is we kind of break out the program, look at it and think, okay, what can we do with these films and how can we translate them into activities and debates with people that are, of course, trained for that, but that make the kids feel that they are part of the festival and not that they are some sort of ghetto of minor, you know, intelligence. And so I would say that these are kind of the big bones of it. Then there are many things around, but just for a start.
Verton, you wrote to me ahead something interesting. Would you like to tell our audience what this example that you texted me?
Sure. What I wrote to you is that. But first of all, let me just try to add a bit to what Cynthia said. We program the festival, and it's easier part actually. You know, you look at the hundreds and even in our occasion thousands of films, and then come up with something. Of course, you need to know your audience, what are their expectations, and what might work best. So these are some let's say guiding principles when we program and when we think about the audience and how to engage the audience and build the audience. But in our occasion, we are a bit on a luckier side, and I will tell you why. Because luckily we run a cinema, and the cinema is just where our offices are. It's a luxury to have a cinema that you can do whatever you want. So we try to imagine what to do with this cinema, what to show at this cinema, and how to bring audience. And then on top of this luck, we have another luck. There's some of our friends run another cinema. So we have two cinemas. So a lot of space to imagine and to think what we, as these lucky bastards who own cinemas or manage cinemas, can do for the audience. And then we imagine a lot. Not that everything works perfectly every time, but at least the imagination is there. So what we do is, and what I mentioned is that we helped our other lucky bastards to start a cinema club in a city. Why cinema club? Because we wanted to have this small group, 20 people, 30 people, this very engaging group of people who would come for whatever we would program. And we would program a lot. You know, for example, when David Lynch died, I programmed 4 films. No, actually 5 films. a month of David Lynch films. No screening fees, no licensing, no announcement, guerrilla style thing, but we would show quality things. And this is back to when we started thinking of how to actually bring more people to cinema, is we started a series for many years of something called secret screenings. So we would never announce what we are showing. We would never get the permission, but we would show. And we would show a lot of old stuff, because we wanted to somehow engage and educate the audience, because we thought that one of our responsibilities is to educate. And how to educate is bring a lot of old stuff. And then I would, let's say, introduce a series of films, talk about films or filmmakers or why it's important. And slowly we built, let's say, a critical mass of 50 people maybe, who come to everything that we announce. Most of them also get engaged with whatever we do at the festival. So it's a nice way to, if you're running a festival and you need people, some sort of engaged youth, I would say this could be a good way to make sure that you have a educated, or let's say interested people in film and in film education and many other things. And on top of everything else, for 10 years or so, we ran the whole educational year-long program with films and the film literacy thing, with teachers and with schools, and expanded all over the country. And during the pandemics, we also developed the online platform for teachers. So, to come back, if we need the audience, we need to look where the audience is. We run a whole children film festival called Oku Kids, because that's the future audience. The audience is also in the schools. So how to get them? We enter the schools. And during the pandemic, as I mentioned, we also created a whole online platform for teachers to get access for the films and the didactic material, to use them in out of curricula. So, trying to find the audience, because we need the audience for the festival, but also during the year. And if you wait, I would say they're not going to come. So as the Muhammad thing, if the story with the Muhammad and the mountain. Yeah, stop here.
So a constant adaptation to the audience, we can say, right? John, after almost 30 years of experience with your festival, can you tell us what your conclusions have been on this matter?
So, going into the discussion, like you said, I think so, as a festival, and I suppose most festivals do, think about target groups per event you're doing or certain screenings, which means you think about what time you set it and which cinema during the festival. So also saying, okay, if you want to have more political stuff, prime time, you will have a bigger audience, a more mixed audience. So it's a question how you program that, I think. So we do a tour for Switzerland. It's in 23 cities, which is more to a younger audience. It's also, I would say, the selection is more mainstream than the majority at our festival, at least in competition. So we want to give access to, let's say, more the party crowd, younger audience. And the most diverse audience is the school screenings. I don't know, we have between 1,000 and 1,500 kids coming. But that's diverse because it's the teachers who decide to come. talking about who is left out, there, I suppose maybe the most religious kids, they're maybe not being sent by their parents. So to have a more critical point of view saying who is left out, that's going to be interesting what we're talking about, because we can say, okay, what is our audience? But we are speaking in a certain bubble, aren't we? I mean, it's more an intellectual bubble, it's more a leftish bubble. It's, in case of Switzerland, probably at our festival, majority Swiss or first generation, like we call them secondos. So it's migrant kids, but been born here. So how can we reach an audience which is, let's say, from the they didn't do university, or let's call them working class, migrants, disabled people? How can we reach them? So that's probably we're all trying somehow, but that's the yeah, it's a complicated construct. But I think so when it comes to our audience and trying to reach just over the border, I think so most festivals do similar things, or have this. We have a certain sense which is very comparable, I suppose. At least if it's not red carpet events.
That's very interesting, and I would like to come back to these points a little bit later. But I would like to ask you, Belkis, because you come from another place as a filmmaker. I mean, if you get invited to show a movie, for example, do you have these discussions in advance with the festivals themselves about accessibility, or how can we imagine this from your perspective?
Hello everyone. Before starting journey of my first feature film, I used to work also as a programmer for a while, and also some industry platforms of the festivals. So when it becomes topic of festivals, I feel desperate in case of Turkey, because it's not easy. That's why I called myself as a retired, and I swear not to work in any festivals in Turkey, but except other places, yes. At that time, I was working at a festival in East Side, Malatya Film Festival, for 2 years. We were doing the program, and we were thinking about how can we embrace the people. And it was many program, as all festivals do, screening for kids and disabled persons, and there were at that time many immigrants from Syria, and special program for them, and also in high schools. And in addition to that, we were doing some kids program in a children's hospital who is having cancer treatment. And at that time, it means every section has another motivation, because if there is a subject of war, you can't screen it to the the immigrants, and for the kids it should it was something like this. And also there were some trucks that we took films to the villages, because I think it's all about the access. And it was fantastic attendance from everywhere. And I totally agree with Cynthia, because there were some films which were, for example, about 13 years age, let's say, but even kids and the families would insist to stay and watch the film. It was really nice. But so when it comes to festivals in Turkey, it means there are municipality, there are politics, there are blah blah. So every year's teams change, and I know you all heard about what's happening in festivals. So it was just for 2 years, like a dream. And then after that, the earthquake happened, and every place demolished. And now in that city, people, it's also my hometown, that's why I underline it too much. We are thinking about how can we motivate the people to go into cinema, because everywhere is demolished. So that's my experience as a festival people, let's say. For the film, I would like to share first a nice memory with Ton, because they did not only contribute to films which are done, they also help the films which are in pre-production. That's what happened to my film, because my film took place in 2 countries. We shot the film in Turkey and Kosovo, in Prizren, and at that time we were looking for talented people, some locations, because Prizren is a small city and you have to organize everything in a very practical way. So it was DocuFest. We had a meeting, and also our co-producer from Kosovo, we really collaborated with a festival during shooting the film. It was really nice, and thank you so much. I'm so happy that today we are here, because it was only that time, 3 years ago, we met with Beton in Prizren, and now I'm happy that the film is out and we are here in Kino Kosovo. For this film's journey, I think it's a bit ironic, because it's the first Turkish-Kosovo co-production, and we shot the film in 2 countries, and the film is not being screened in Kosovo yet, even though there are festivals in Kosovo. I mean the fiction ones. So for me now, today's screening is important, really, and also next week is going to be screened in Macedonia. But Balkan region was really my, focus for this film. So we will see how we can screen the film in Kosovo. But for the festivals part, I can say, yeah, it's not a good experience for us.
I would like to stay a little bit longer with the constraints that are hindering you. And since we have 4 people from 4 different countries, I would like to hear maybe a little bit more specific. We heard about the political pressure. We heard about maybe religious issues. Maybe also gender issues could be a topic, and for sure also financial constraints. Could you elaborate a little bit on the problems that you face while doing all these thoughts about the accessibility?
Well, I think I think, traditionally in Doc Lisboa, the big constraint is the fact that it's a festival in the capital. It's not a big city for Europe, but it's a big city for Portugal. And of course the festival is in the center, and therefore there are many people, with in the outskirts who are economically less privileged, for whom it is difficult to access the festival, and therefore our educational program is actually really important, because it's the same thing. We work with teachers, so they come, etc. But we also, during the year, we also work with cine clubs, etc. So we try to take the films out of the center, which is also very interesting, because I mean the big dream is to actually fill the center of the capital with people who wouldn't normally be there. And for example, in the past, in 2012, we had this lovely experience that I want to share, because it was a very difficult year for Portugal, because it was the financial crisis. We had the Troika there. They were treating us like crap, literally. And for the first time, it was horrible. And for the first time, police was beating people in demonstrations for the first time since dictatorship. And so, and videos, activist videos were being put out of the internet. And we understood that, because it was happening to us. And so we created a strand called Cinema of Urgency, which doesn't exist now because it has been kind of appropriated by other strands. But for many years, we had this strand that was, the entrance was based on donations. So we would choose one association, and every ticket was a donation for that association. And we would show, focuses on collectives like Abu Nadara, Betsalem, etc. But we would also show tutorials how to shoot policemen and archive the undercover policemen trying to destroy your demonstration, for example, right? Or right-wing fascist insiders. And it was amazing, because it was a cinema right in the heart of the city, of the center, and we had people that we would never have in the festival, right? I remember one time there was this association that brought this huge soup, and they were giving soup to everyone who was coming to the screenings. And that was a wonderful experience. And it's actually, for me, one of the big goals of a festival is not just to show great movies, but it's also to give a sense of potential and possibility to occupy the spaces of power, right? Nowadays, though, I think there's another problem, which in Lisbon, and I imagine other cities, other capitals in Europe, which is the fact that we are a colonized city, I'm sorry to say. But we are becoming a colonized city. It's deeply gentrified, but it's not just gentrification now. It's a city where many places we can't speak Portuguese anymore to be served food in restaurants or to be, served the coffee, because we have to live by the rules of the rich Americans, rich French, rich Russians that moved to Lisbon.
So you're speaking about expat communities?
Yes, expats are migrants, rich migrants, right? The non-white migrants are migrants, the rich are expats. And so Doc Lisboa has to suddenly deal with something really hard and really painful. Doc Lisboa is always a very welcoming festival for all people, all languages. There was no problem in doing a Q&A in English or even in French because people speak languages in Portugal. Nowadays, Portuguese people don't want to listen to a Q&A in English. We had a lot of complaints. People are angry. And so suddenly we had to put in place, last year, like in the middle of the festival, we had to put in place the system of translation, knowing that people understand, but to respect the anger. At the same time, we have rich expats coming to us and shouting at us. I had that because we are doing a Q&A in Portuguese with a Portuguese filmmaker. At the same time, the prices are very cheap because salaries for Portuguese people in Portugal are low. House is very expensive, so the maximum you will pay for a ticket is €4.50. But I don't want to sell those tickets to rich people, I want them to pay at least 3 times that. And so, but I don't know how to make a system for that. So that's, no, but this is really important because it's about financial problems of the festival, right? Like, I don't want to use public money to give cheap content to people who are destroying our mode of life. The team of Doc Lisboa can't live in Lisbon anymore, or many of us can't live in Lisbon. So in terms of audiences, this is also an issue. What we see now is that a lot of our audience was put out of the city. They don't live there anymore, our traditional audience. So they can't come. And suddenly we are in the danger of becoming a bobo, provider of content for...
A folkloristic reminder of the past.
Sorry?
A folkloristic reminder of the past.
Yeah.
Bertrand, would you like to add something?
I will. I'm not as angry as Cynthia. And my constraints are different. So I don't worry too much about the audience during the festival, because luckily we do have let's say, a stable audience. So, depending on the year, there have been between 15 and 20,000 people attending the screenings and the music parts and the children parts. So, very stable. What I'm angry is what other cinemas during the year are offering, and that's bullshit. Because there's no quality cinema in these cinemas. So we're coming back to the responsibility we somehow put upon our shoulders to show films what others are not showing. Because there are no art house cinemas in the city. So if you want to see a good film, you simply cannot. Because there is not. When we started the festival, there was only one cinema. Or there were no cinemas, actually. Then we started the cinema, and then in less than a couple of years, 2 big multiplexes opened 15 screens. But these 15 screens show nothing. Believe me, nothing. Or show things that I would never go and pay. Why would I go and watch the franchise of, I don't know, another Hollywood superheroes things? I've seen them already. Many years ago. I'm not interested. And I don't believe that the cinema or the audience can be revived through these kind of films. So again, I feel a bit of the responsibility to at least try to find alternative ways of showing quality cinema to at least this small number of people that are interested in this kind of films, and that's where my anger lies. I'm not so angry as Cynthia whether we are programming for rich people. I mean, we are programming. Whoever comes. I mean, I'm happy whoever comes for the screening. We put a lot of effort for the films to bring quality films, and now we are, let's say, recognized as a festival that shows high quality films. It's kind of difficult to pinpoint a bad film at the festival anymore. It's an effort of a group of people who, for the whole year, comes and watches and tries to bring as best as possible, and that's our mantra. So for that, I'm pretty okay and happy that we are managing and that the audience is recognizing it. But that's only for 9 days. What about the rest of the year? And I'm more and more concerned with how to find ways and bring more people and keep more people interested in cinema. And I just forgot to mention that throughout the year we also run something called Documentary Mondays. So every Monday, actually we now moved to Wednesdays, but never changed the. But there's one day in the week which is dedicated to documentaries. So and it's free. And also we work with the university. So often, if the theme is interesting and important, then the part of the audience is in the university and in the people who through our work with the summer school that the university runs every year, we have another pool of potential interested audience that come targeted, not for everything, but it's there. So again, it's a matter of how you find it and make them interested with the content that you create. And I think that's another responsibility of us as programmers and people who are in the cinema programming or in the privileged position of being able to bring something, is to identify and find and offer things.
John Belkis, are you angry too?
So first of all, I mean, most of you know we live in a certain kind of Disneyland here, so it is very different. Maybe problems are on another level, but I know, thinking about what our constraints are, if I compare when I started in culture, where we did more things freestyle and we didn't do all the reporting and we would just do stuff, and now being in a bigger organization, I'm just crazy how much time is sucked up for finding money to do reporting, meetings, etc. Which we have ideas for projects, but it's kind of you need funding for them. Also, maybe because we did a structure where we are paid, so we make our living out of it. So it makes it more complicated. Before we said, I have my job, I don't mind, I'll do it for free, and we did more stuff. So on one side, this constraints which is happening, like specifically in Switzerland, if you're talking the people left out, I would say it's when we show films, we have a certain view and try to include the global south as much as we can. We had a financing for it, but in Switzerland, the whole financing of the Department of Development and Projects, DEZA, they're stopping their cultural contributions within Switzerland. And all contracts are running out, and the latest one will be by 28, so it affects Fribourg Film Festival, Locarno, the whole section of Open Doors, our festival, Vision du Réel. But also this event, I'm sure you're getting money from the DEZA somehow, or through Artlink, but Artlink is also financed by them, so that's one thing. So what we are trying to say, okay, when one is a connection to a Swiss audience, but also to hope maybe then the diaspora are interested in, if there are films running of their community, that we have a certain way to speak to them, and hopefully they become a part of the audience. I mean, statistically, we cannot complain. We're a short film festival. We have between 17 and 18,000 people coming to the festival, which is a lot for a short film festival. It looks great at numbers, and a couple of thousand on our tour. But then looking into about the communities, I would say that looks a little bit different. Our statistics look great for the government. I'm sure it's great for sponsoring, right age, good education, but they're left out. Who is advocating for them? It's hard to get sometimes funding. I would take two examples of projects. One project I wanted to do is a project for, let's say, for 4 years, that an amateur programming group, so people could apply and we do the lottery and pick them out so they could do a program. They don't have knowledge of short film. That's more complicated. It's a huge amount. It's not, most of them didn't see so many films, so you have to give them maybe a selection of, let's say, 100 films. In forehand, you have to clear the rights. Then, if it's picked, that you'll get the film for a certain amount of money, etc. So it's quite big. But then they would do this program. It's hard to finance, so we didn't find anything. That's one part. The other is more to do with us, and it's because we're so sucked up with doing stupid administration stuff, and I mean, we pay more money sometimes for getting permission for something than for the content, which is absurd. I strongly believe we're an association, and I think we have many volunteers. So if we have a more diverse group doing volunteer work, and I think then we see interesting young people from everywhere and trying to get them in our team. It's not so hard to get in our team. We're an association which 50 to 60 people, besides people in the office, are contributing. So actually I think it's a low step for anyone to come in. But I think so it's rooted down in community work, but we don't have the resources at the moment to do so. But I believe, so as a festival, it starts with your team, and they will bring a certain audience. If you're talking about in Switzerland, the people left that, I think so. That will be the most logic way to work.
I live in Istanbul, and it's a really big city, and I live in Anatolian side. Most of the festivals in Istanbul, I mean the big ones, it's always they always take place in European side, and it's mostly one street, Istiklal Street. I think all these festivals have sort of obsession with it, because there are many nice places that can be a good place for a festival. I don't know, but even though they make a small festival in a periphery of a city, they do all these opening, closing, and big screenings again in Istiklal. So for me, for example, as a person who lives in Asian side, it's always a problem of access. And if they program, sometimes they program in Anatolian side too, but it's not the main screenings with Q&As, and it's always the third or the second screenings. So when it comes to screening of Gülizar, I don't know how many times it has been screened in Istiklal, and I think there is no need for it. But for anyone else in Istanbul, it was a problem of access. But with the pandemic, Ministry of Culture and Tourism just started to give another funding for the local cinemas. And every year they are giving some financial support to local cinemas in all around Turkey. But they ask for one thing. They have to screen the supported independent cinema. So this became another, way for us to distribute the film the whole around Istanbul. And also it's nice that the ministry is in a way threatening with the money to show them also independent cinema. So in a way, yes, for the festival side, I think it should be more, delivered to the parts of the city. But now with this screenings policy, somehow it's working.
And since we landed there, I would like to ask all of you if you could formulate a wish how you could raise accessibility in your own festivals or in the fields you're working. What would that be, and who would be the adressate of it? Would it be the state? Would it be the society as it all, the municipality?
I think it would have to be a holistic strategy. I agree with Vetten in that audiences also depend on what you have access along the year, right? But I think in our context, at least, we would need more art house cinemas in the city. We only have 2. The state is not the least implied or engaged, interested in actually making an effort to diversify the landscape of art house distribution and exhibition in the country. They say they are, but it doesn't work. So we definitely would need that. And I also think that festivals, at least in our context, we have a lot of festivals in Lisbon. And I think festivals need to rethink their role and have a more ecological coexistence with cinemas, and to respect the role of cinemas and to collaborate in more balanced ways. That's one thing. So I think cineclubs are the future, actually. I believe one day cineclubs will kind of replace festivals, but that's a bit of I imagine that in 100 years, maybe, if we are all here. But I think cineclubs are really important spaces to develop more and to fund, because cineclubs are really the grassroots of audiences, right? So I think that would also be important, and I think festivals can have a strong political voice next to governments, next to Europe and to European, in our context, right? Creative Europe, and I think that's super important. So I would say, and about the audiences, these questions that I talk about, like the demographic transformation of cities, which are a huge challenge. Barcelona, for example, is another example of a city ravaged by that. I think festivals can be a great space to try to have meaningful conversations about policy that has to do with people's access to their own cities, because that's the problem, right? So for me, it's really about trying to be an active voice around policies, about policies for exhibition and distribution, but also for education. I am very much against doing what Portugal did, which was to put film for schools as artistic education. I don't think film is artistic education anymore. I think it's basic education. Like kids read books, they have to watch films because they have a camera in their pocket, right? And so media literacy is not about artistic education. It's really basic. And I did some efforts. I tried to do some pilot trials, like in really nice schools where they start every morning with reading a story, And I asked, can we please do an experiment and start 2 mornings a week with a short film? And they didn't want, because it's weird. It feels like they are lowering the bar, And I think that's also a lot to do with the lack of film education of adults, right? Teachers and other educators that don't know cinema. And here I go back to what Vetten was saying. The films that are shown, the role of platforms, etc., etc. So the way the film experience was also atomized, right? So I think there's a huge work to do that I believe has to do also with a lot of lobbying, a lot of conversation, and really festivals taking their role as political voices.
What would I wish? I think so. Speaking how to reach another audience. I suppose I don't know how it's in your countries, but I suppose it's similar that cultural events, especially film festivals, read it, there was a cultural journalism existing, which is dead, and it's all about people. It's people. Even at the Tagesanzeiger, which was one of the biggest newspapers. If I read culture, it's not, the feuilleton is dead. There is only speaking about stars, about celebrities, etc. So that seems the way of communication. So how can we reach a potential audience knowing what we're doing, what kind of films we're speaking, which kind of art form, or what kind of debates are we starting? And and everything is marketing. And once you start with marketing, which is necessary today, it's just very simple, stupid messages. It's about eventism, and it has and also newspaper, they copy what you write. So you do a press release, but nobody comes and writes about your content. And even if they're critical, I don't care. I mean, I don't say a journalist has to like our stuff. If they don't like it, it's fair enough. They write about it. There's a debate. That's what festivals are about. So I would wish, how can we find a way to promote events, but more on a journalistic or whatever it will be in the future? Because the direction we're going, the big ones will win, the others will lose. That's pretty clear, the tendency. On the other hand, we have one project which is pretty nice. We are only contributing on that side. It's from our city. It's from the social department. It started, Winterthur came in the news because we had problems with Islamists. So there was a mosque with huge problems. So they opened this department taking care of this. And they did a screening, and they asked us, could we work with film? And we said, yeah, shorts is actually pretty good. You can show 2 shorts and do a debate. So it's more like an input, a filmic input, but it's not about artistic form. It's mainly to start a debate. And they're continuing it since 3 years now, but then LGBTQI is a topic. So it's different, like in their social department. And I would wish that more cities would do so. And I think so short film is a very good form, because you can show like 2-3 films to show that films can help your critical view, or it gives you help for an imagination. Even if you don't understand it, there's somewhere you can speak with your colleagues, and that's how to start a debate, which is not only for the people going to festivals, which maybe it seems from outside an intellectual bubble, which I would disagree on, maybe on some parts of it, yes, but not completely. So these initiatives, which is the responsibility of the public, of the cities, and not also always us festivals pulling out new projects, using more resources. Even if you get money, your team won't grow. So it's kind of exhausting your resources, even if you get cash, because that's the way we try to fund our system. But to say, okay, the public has a responsibility, and film is so important. You said every kid has a camera, and they also have to learn that everything is manipulated. Every image. I mean, you have a documentary film festival. What's a documentary film? The biggest question ever, no? And it's important to understand that film is one of the most powerful expression existing. A moving image will burn in your brain stronger than any other medium.
I agree. But the thing is, we now compete with these things here in our pocket. Everyone has it, and the habit of watching, whether to watch there, to watch Netflix in your bedrooms, or to make an effort and go to cinema. It's a lot of competition involved, and we are on the other side of like a gatekeepers of trying to find ways, imagine again programs in order to make these people believe that the effort is justifiable. So I don't spend an evening with my wife and watch on Netflix, and kids don't go to switch from TikTok to watch something, but decide to come to the cinema. So this is again another responsibility that we have it. So in that sense, I again come back to how I imagine. What am I going to do? How should I? What kind of films or programs can maybe spark this this imagination? So they decide to come. And in that sense, for example, I met someone at the Cannes Festival while I was discussing one film for potential screening at the festival. Again, a very old film, Charlie Chaplin, Gold Rush film. Then she introduced me to someone else. Said, but you need to talk to my colleague because he is managing something much bigger. And then in 5 minutes, I nearly agreed for a small amount of money for 30 films, all of them classic. And we're starting next month. So, you know, there are sometimes some sparks, some things that if you put enough yourself in it and think that if I bring maybe these 50 people, 100 people in my little city can be interested. And I'm now excited because they gave me a whole bunch of catalog with hundreds and hundreds of films, all of them great. To choose 30 films for, I would say, very affordable fee to make a like kind of dream program, you know. So now when I go from here, I'm going to sit with my colleague from the foundation, you know, the other lucky bastards, to go through these hundreds and hundreds of films, to imagine 30 films, and then put a name and say, come and watch Nicholas Roeg film, or this kind of stuff. Because again, I think it's our responsibility, and because we can do it, and again, because we are lucky bastard that we have cinema there, fully equipped with DCPs and everything. So for us, it's easier, you know, it's easier to imagine something and say, this is what we can do. And also during the festival for years and years, we're doing something which is called Blast from the Past. So imagining films from the past and bringing them back. So Kubrick, okay. So what we do 2 Kubrick films. I think it's another thing that if you're running a festival and you're thinking about the audience and the new audience, I think there are some hundreds of possible paths and ways how you can do with little effort. And we only do 3 films, 3 to 4 films every year, but carefully selected and with one small things in mind, that the film must be something that had been shown 40 years ago, 50 years ago in the same cinema. So we're bringing old film to new audiences. Just as a small kind of principle to bridge what had been shown. And you know, I was born and got my film education by going through to these cinemas and watching a lot of old stuff. And my film education started from Western films. You know, we used to call it cowboy films. But I am very grateful because I learned so much through this particular genre first, and then film noir and everything. And luckily, living in Yugoslavia, there was a lot of very quality films on television. So all of Hitchcock stuff and everything, it was on television. So you know, it's now I feel a bit kind of almost like obliged to, because I'm in this, again, in this privileged position, that I should bring more to this new generation so they don't sit on the TikTok all the time. There's some great stuff, as John said, that there is no better art form than film. Faster, important, you can do many things, and if you even want to convey a message, you put up 4 films in a program, and put a name and say something, and it's important. And of course, films are important. Again, I stop here.
But I think it's interesting, you know, what has changed to TikTok and it's all the choice, you know. I mean, I'm a little bit younger than you, but still I remember we had 3 channels. So what television showed is what you would watch. If I was bored, I would watch television. I was a TV kid, and I had to get up to change the channel. So you would just sit and watch what is coming. But nowadays we have, I think some people are struggling taking choices. It's too much information. And before you were just there to go, if I'm consuming, I trust the curation of a state TV or whatever, which is not always right. But I think so. How can we?
That's why people like us are important, because we are gatekeepers. We bring something. People trust you. People trust Cynthia and me. That something is more valuable than many other things. So maybe they decide and come and watch things, and you know, same as pushing one of these 3 buttons back then.
Yeah, but then you know, how can we change it? It's I don't know. I have to organize my thoughts. It's of course we are gatekeepers, but how can we bring an audience who doesn't know it yet to this content? I have the feeling that a mainstream audience, at least here in Switzerland. First of all, I also work for a cinema, and we do retros. So if we show those blasts of the past, which are amazing, I'm probably one of the youngest in the cinema. First of all, so how can you reach a younger audience for those classics, which I'm sure they would love it if they would come. And secondly, it's also, I have the feeling, and it's totally subjective, that there's this idea of art house films, and a younger generation sees it very as something very bourgeois, you know. To a certain point, I have the feeling, maybe at least here in Central Europe, sometimes, oh, this is intellectual. So it's kind of like shifting off, and even people on the super left who are more on that side have a similar reaction, say, oh, that's commercial, there's money, and even if it's intellectual, it comes from a certain upper class idea.
But I think, can I just add one quick thing? I agree with that. I think there is a lot of work to be done, going back to the role of cultural journalism and the tradition of film criticism. I believe that we lost something that was really important for audiences, which was a tradition of intellectual battles. Film critics had intellectual battles publicly on newspapers about film, and that was so exciting. And that is lost. Today, a film critic who doesn't like a film will not write. It's very rare that we actually read, well, first, as you said, there's no space. So it's really hard to put any sort of big, long length, you know, in-depth analysis of any film in a public newspaper, a mainstream newspaper. It will be the niche blog that nobody reads. Second, the tradition of not agreeing and the pleasure of disagreeing and battling for ideas is lost, or at least endangered. And I think that is a huge problem for audiences, because I remember being a kid and my parents became curious about films just because they were being the object of a fight, you know, between 2 people in a newspaper, and they want to be part of it. They want to have an opinion. And that were Portuguese films. Nowadays, like for example, we also distribute films. We used to distribute 6 films a year. We reduced now to 2 because it's really hard, so we want to put the effort. Now we are distributing Henry Fonda for President, which is a really lovely film, super engaging, etc. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. And the journalists try to write and said, but there's no, and the reason I believe is 2 things. First, culture has been put as the corner of the left, and people who are not identifying with the left and with the good side of thinking feel excluded. And I think that's a problem. So this sounds problematic, but I really advocate for, of course, not racist, fascist, Nazi contents. That's not what I'm advocating for at all. But I really advocate for, festivals not letting themselves be cornered in that place. because the society is so polarized that we need to bridge that gap, you know, and we need to open space for people who don't think like we do. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, I don't know how, but I really think that we need to have the courage to go back to the time when we had the pleasure to publicly disagree and to really fight about ideas on films and to connect films with life, with politics, with what is going on in the world and fight about that. There was a wonderful moment 10 years ago when there was this Swiss documentary by the very famous Swiss documentary filmmaker who did a film about migrants in some city in Switzerland, a migrants' place.
Milgas.
Sorry?
Milgas.
Melgar, Fernand Melgar. And Paulo Branco, the Portuguese producer, wrote on Le Monde that it was the banality of evil. And he made a terribly violent article against the film. I was so happy. Not because I agree with him or not, that's not important. But the fact is that we showed the film at Doc Lisboa and the audience is flocked because they wanted to know and they wanted to have an opinion. And I think that's also the problem. We don't link films enough to what is going on, and journalists don't have the space, the support, the trust to do their jobs, basically.
And they don't have the money, I can assure you of that. I would like to open up. Are there any questions from the audience? Otherwise, I think we can continue. But if there are any questions, we are very happy to take them. Then, yes.
Hi, everybody. I joined later. Maybe I missed it, but my question is, are you angry with that people are not coming to the festivals or with people not watching the films?
No, I don't think we are angry. I mean,
Yeah, they're smiling. I mean, it can't be that bad.
we may be angry, or at least I am angry, that what is on the repertoire of cinemas is wrong. Or what cinema, the mainstream cinema is offering is wrong. And the lack of space for good cinema is shrinking. Where I live, it's almost inexistent. In this city, I saw for example, Rex has some nice offering. So Lynch retrospective, and there's some newer films. So I am angry because if someone is where I live, someone wants to go to cinema, it's only Superman or this kind of films, and it's only one part of cinema. It's what Hollywood is offering us. But cinema is outside Hollywood. There's great cinema at the moment and before and hopefully in the future. But what happens is that the space for this kind of films is getting smaller and smaller. The lack of proper journalism and film criticism is also helping this, because there are not how to understand or know that a good film is out there and showing at some corner of Bern somewhere over there. If no proper film journalism exists, then the chances to know that this kind of great films are being shown somewhere is getting smaller and smaller. The lack of debate that Cynthia mentioned is also helping this, that we get angrier for this lack of space. So if for example I am angry that there is less and less space for good cinema as opposed to a lot of space for bad cinema.
Yeah, and I'm not angry at an audience or a non-audience. I'm sorry if that came through. That's not what I would like to say. It's maybe more the chance how we can transport to even it's getting harder to target your own audience, and how we can open up to a potential audience. I define it a little bit different than Veton, in a sense. As a short film festival, we try to offer to show films which is not YouTube and not mainstream cinema or classic art house cinema. We're asking, I don't know, I would need to ask my managing director, but probably $16. So why should I ask you $16 to see some mini films, mini feature films? We're trying to show films, we do something differently, and yes, it may be challenging. I'm just asking the audience, it's a way to show an alternative, things which are maybe not all the films are very common, they do differently. So that's the reason to come. And I don't expect to say this is good what we're doing. We're just showing an alternative. It's up to the audience to decide what they like and dislike. I don't believe in this maybe it's here in Central Europe that when I started at the festival, I had this idea, people saying, oh, let's do some entertaining programs and then they will come to competition to the real stuff. I think it's a very wrong way. It's too didactical, and I don't think it's very democratic. It is a certain elite thinking behind this. But I believe as festival we can offer an alternative. And if we cannot send this message, actually it's an invitation, what we're all doing now. We're a platform, but we're also inviting people to do so. It's a mind game. If you come to festivals, like I said, it should be inspiring to think, to laugh, to cry, to have a collective experience and come together as human beings. But there's no way more to transport this, and it's only about people and marketing, and then the big films get all the attention. There's no criticism, no debate. It gets always harder, and we all become in the niche. And I'm angry at ourselves that we don't find the solution. The anger is maybe also a self-anger at the end.
Yeah, I'm not angry about that at all. What I do feel is I'm really sorry, for the younger generation. Like I have a nephew who's like 24, 25, and he told me, I don't go to the movies because it's boring. The big mainstream movies. And I said, okay, so I'm going to give you the list of mainstream movies that I watched when I was young. I grew up in the 90s, and I realized, and he loves them. And I realized that the mainstream blockbusters in the 90s were so good compared to today. Like the soundtracks, the actors, the imaginaries, it was insane. And suddenly I had these kids watching blockbusters from the 90s, reconnecting with film through that. And so when we talk about festivals being alternatives, it sounds boring, like your first question is, why should I look for an alternative? I'm so happy with my TikTok. The problem is that many kids, what they're doing right now is constantly looking at themselves all the time on 20-second videos. Themselves or people like them who think like them, or making fun of people, which is a weird trend now, which is videos of police beating migrants and kids are laughing, So there's a problem here, which is a basic problem, which is what do humans become when they don't connect with complexity, with emotions? Emotions do not happen in 20 seconds. No one gets sad in 20 seconds. It takes time. And film is about time. And so, for me, I don't care if people don't want to watch the documentaries that Douglas Bohr shows or the fictions that Douglas Bohr shows. But look for films that are a little bit more complex than the crap that is constantly being repeated, the same thing all over again, that you can consume in 20-second clips. So that's, if I'm angry at something, I'm angry at the business. The fact that we never allowed, but the big shots allowed the big companies, the big business to enter in such way that right now you will never have access to the great films that I had access, and I was not growing up in a cinephile family. I was watching anything that would go to the movies, okay? That's my problem.
Do we have another question? Yes? The cameraman, perfect.
Hi, I just have a fast question. Do you think that in the future, cinema's becoming more for the rich people? Because nowadays it's so difficult to get the money to do the film. Like if as a filmmaker, just to do a film that I was also a refugee here 10 years ago, and just to get the money to start doing something, even if it's easy, I can do it by phone, I know that, but it's difficult here just to get the time to do that, because otherwise you can't live. So is it gonna be like in the future just for the rich people?
No. I don't believe that. Actually, to make films is cheaper and cheaper. To be honest, you know, what costed or you needed too many people to be engaged and involved in making a film, you can make the film with very few people and with less money. So the whole idea that in the future the films might be some elitistic thing for only for the rich because there won't be money, I don't think it's gonna happen. The whole democratization of filmmaking is actually happening. It's been happening for many years now. So to make a film is I'm not trying to say that you don't need money to make a film, but in the future I don't believe that the whole idea is that only is for the rich. Again, it's what kind of film you want to make. Did you do the whole research where the money is? Because money is somewhere, but you know that's why you need producers. You know all the stuff. So you don't really step into the whole thing and make everything on your own. Then it becomes expensive, complicated, and only a few people can make it. So my answer would be no. I don't know how the others feel.
I mean, one is producing films, the other is kind of perceiving films or consuming films. So on the consuming side, I think they need a mass. So of course Disney and Netflix, they're putting up prices, but they know how far they can go, and they need the masses. They don't need the rich people. There's no interest for them. That's the one side. So I think so cinema or film, there will always be a popular part. I think so. Some part will be seen as bourgeoisie, but it's not connected to an economy and that side. Producing films, I would also say it's getting cheaper, but there's an overproduction. I mean, that's the problem. Is more and more films want to be produced in every country. The numbers are crazy, and we are of course trained. Many people go to university, they learned how to do film, and then we tell them how to do so. You do the production company, and everyone believes I'm a great artist and I have the right, because I studied this, to achieve this. I want to make a living out of it, which is fair, but it's just not going to happen with this amount. So it's a your little question is super complex at the end, but I would say like Veton, it's consuming film will, I suppose, will always be something popular. Or then we have guerrilla cinemas. There will be always a way. I mean, it's like in countries where certain films are under censorship. They get out. So the films, they will get out. I'm not scared about that.
No more questions? Well, then, Belkis, Veton, Cynthia, John, thank you very much. I think this is worth an applause.